Our growth, really, both on the engine side of our company and the drivetrain side of our company, it's all around technology. It's all around product innovation, technology leadership. And again, what we're all about is we're very focused in the powertrain. That's all we do. We focus very narrowly on powertrain. And we bring and innovate and we deliver new technologies that help the automakers meet their fuel economy standards, their emission standards, and we get great driving performance for the end customer. So that's really what drives the company. That's what's driven us for a while. I don't think that's one big thing. You know, if I look at our history and I look forward, what we've done, and we've done very well actually, is we've anticipated what that next trend may be. So, you know, go back way back, and you know, we had the foresight to see the evolution and penetration of all-wheel drive type vehicles, four-wheel drive type architectures, and that drove our business for many years around transfer case technology. You know, we had a vision many years ago around the evolution of air management and the optimization of air management, which took us into the turbocharger business and more recently into advanced emissions type products. So I think that's going to be the pattern you will see for BorgWarner. So if you think of the continued evolution of transmission evolution, 8-speed, 9-speed, 10-speed, you think of all-wheel drive architecture, you know, disconnect capability, more driving performance. You think of the continued evolution of hybrid, you think of internal combustion engine. They all offer opportunity for new innovation and new technology, and that's where we'll see BorgWarner continue to do it. And the way I like to think of it is it's kind of a product or a system at a time. You know, we're not out there gambling or betting on one big thing that's going to change the world. I think it'll just be a series of incremental new products. Some of those are extensions of our current products, and some will be brand new. The central theme for us somewhat is the automaker. You know, we certainly take on board government policy, end user preferences, etc. But our primary relationship is with the automakers. And the way I would articulate that is, it's very much evolved into a partnership type approach over the last decade. And what that really translates to is the automakers are thinking, here's where we need to be 5 years, 10 years, 12 years in terms of meeting emission standards, meeting fuel economy standards. And they engage in that dialogue with the types of companies like BorgWarner. And they say, this is what we're thinking of. We're thinking of a 9-speed, a 10-speed, and whatever. What do you think? And we say, you know, that's pretty interesting. And here's some ideas that we would have that may be able to help you get there. And that is a very advanced relationship, and it's quite formalized, and that's how we do things. And so we're inventing with them. That's, to me, the very key point. We're not doing a whole lot of pure invention in isolation. It's somewhat connected to the automakers. And then it evolves into a path of evolution. You know, we'll develop and invent a few products, they'll test, not quite okay, let's go to another product, and that's an iterative process. And then when it comes to releasing that engine or that transmission, as we've worked with them for multiple years, with a kind of natural choice to be the supplier for that product, because we've engineered ourselves into the engine or the transmission. So I would say to you, that's the bulk of how we do R&D. The other perspective we do have another part of our engineering group that is much longer out, 10, 15, 20 years, and that's probably a little more aligned with research institutes, universities, etc., where we're thinking maybe a little bit beyond the norm. Now, we've got a goal out there that will be, we're going to double the size of the company over the next 7 years. So in rough numbers, that takes us from about a $7.5 billion company to a $15 billion company over 7 years. So that's pretty exciting. That's pretty challenging as well. The vast majority of that will come through what we discussed earlier, which is, you know, organic product innovation, organic technology. So that's the primary path for growth. Part of that growth story will come through acquisition, as it's done in the past. And when we think of acquisitions, we have a very focused effort, and it's around bringing in technology to the company. Every company we target from an acquisition perspective needs to bring technology and needs to bring growth, and those are very fundamental. We're very open if it's drivetrain or engine, that's okay, and we're very open to wherever it may be in the world, so that gives us some flexibility. And we have about 30 companies, target companies, that we're evaluating. Some of those are pretty preliminary, and some of those are getting much closer towards a potential transaction. If you add the annualized revenue of those 30 companies, it's about $5 or $6 billion. So it gives you a little bit of a sense of our growth. Now, we're not going to bring all of those home, we know that. But what we do believe is if you've got a robust set of companies in the hopper and you're managing them well, one or two of those are going to fall through to the bottom, and that's what we're planning on. So acquisition's an important part of our growth story, just like it has been in the past, actually. We've had a history of some very effective, very successful joint ventures. Probably one of our most famous one is with a partner in Japan. And we do have joint ventures in China. We have joint ventures in India. So that's been a part of our strategy when we feel that. But I would say in general, we kind of go to market more as a wholly owned company, but we do use joint ventures in emerging markets. In a broader perspective, we use alliances, partnerships, joint ventures in a number of different ways also, primarily around education institutions. So we have a lot of relationships, universities, colleges, which doesn't maybe surprise you when you think we're a technology company. So we utilize them in that perspective as well as the more conventional joint venture company for operations. There's many things as you go around the world that can drive our business. The one that probably hits closest to us, though, is the legislation that drives fuel economy standards, emissions performance, and other related pieces of legislation. So in North America, we're all driving towards CAFE standards. They're 20 years out. We know what the game is. Everybody's bought into them, and then we can go forward. So that's key. The next part is then for the government to get out of the way. And what I mean by the government getting out of the way is what we don't need is the government to help decide what type of engine technology or vehicle technology is required to meet those standards. So simply put, let the automakers, let the suppliers, let the consumer decide if you want a naturally aspirated engine or you want a turbocharged engine to meet the standards, whether you want to put more speeds in a transmission. Let that play out to give the best solution for all parties, automakers, suppliers, and consumers, rather than heavily subsidized government incentives to pick or force a technology into the space. And I think if we get that level of consistency, it'll be a good world for us. There's other things though I would touch on. As much obviously economic stability that we can get, of course, helps. There's nothing worse than cycling in and out of recession, as an example. So the more consistent the economies can be, the better for it. Last but not least, which does drive our business globally, is the governments need to ensure they're providing a competitive landscape for doing business. Whether that's free trade agreements, whether that's tax policy, whether that's, educational institutions, it varies by country. But, we've got to make each country competitive because we're a global industry. So I encourage and applaud the governments that are taking actions in those fields also. I think the two key areas that we've seen the most change, or we are seeing change, are the customers and our employees. So from an employee perspective, a couple of major shifts for us. As we talked about earlier, we're an ever-growing global company. So we're bringing people into our business, whether it be Portugal, Poland, India, Brazil, And that brings challenges. We're a much more global company, and those regions of the world are very different, so you have to learn how to do that. We see generation shifts. We're bringing in a lot more younger employees into our company, and as I'm learning, they're very different to people like me, and that's okay. And we have to capture that. We have to harness the uniqueness that the younger folks bring into our company and learn to work with it. So definitely a difference. Our employees, I think, when I compare to a decade ago, much more socially aware, much more environmentally conscious. So that brings different perspectives of how you run the company. To us, we see that as a big advantage. Big advantage because it brings diversity, and it brings a different perspective. And Portuguese people do think differently to people in Hungary, and that's good. That's really good, actually. So I think our perspective is we're trying to take advantage, so to speak, of that. And what we do is we respect and value the different cultures of the world, but the overall glue, or brings it all together, is BorgWarner. And with the customer, I would say it's more about transparency. I think that's a little bit of a shift. I alluded earlier that it's this very open, collaborative approach on developing new technology. With that comes a trust and an openness to just share with the customers what you're thinking of what you're doing, what you're thinking of what they're doing. And the good news for the industry, I think we're on the right path there. I see more and more of that occurring. So that's a bit of a shift, much more so than metrics and reporting and data. It's more about behavioral engagement.